In this video, my team and I took an hour-long live stream that I did about selling on Amazon, answering some questions and some massive gems to help your business, and condensed it down. I usually like to share some major gems on these live streams, so make sure you're on the next one, but go ahead and check it out. And if you guys are looking for even more free resources to learn how to sell on Amazon, you can check out the link down below. It's our free Amazon seller Discord community. Ton of people in there sharing a ton of free information. Would love to see you in there. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So I'm gonna have enough capital to make the purchases to grow. That's a big one, right? Unfortunately, every business wants more money, right? Not every business wants more online arbitrage leads, because that's usually gonna be the two things you're limited at. Either you're not finding enough leads or you don't have enough money. So you're in the boat where you're sourcing great, but you don't have enough money. So if you really know what you're doing, you can look at like Amex Plum, that kind of thing, zero APR cards. You can also leverage like Amazon loans and that kind of stuff. You're getting those offered. But that's awesome that that's your limitation, right? Because most of the people in the chat, I bet, you can let me know if this is you. Most people are probably limited by sourcing. I would say very few people are limited by the capital, just in terms of the whole industry. What do you do if you're doing retail arbitrage and they ask for invoices due to quality issues? I don't do very much retail arbitrage, and that's part of the reason why. Online receipts work way better than like a physical receipt for IP purposes and all that. So that's one of several reasons why I don't do any RA anymore. I'd much rather build out the team and have them do a lot of the heavy lifting, have them step in to help, all that good stuff. But you just can't leverage like team building and that kind of stuff. That's way more fun to me if you're only doing RA. Suppose you could build like in-person scanning teams and all that kind of stuff, but it's complicated. What percent of your business is wholesale? Probably like 5%, but definitely working on that. Been reaching out to some distributors. I actually placed like a 20K PO today. So working on getting into wholesale. What is your go-to ROI per product? Yes, you're going to want to look for like 35% ROI on most products. Sometimes we'll go down to like 25% if it's like grocery where you don't get returns. We might also go down if it's something that's super consistent. If it's something you know you're going to get heavy returns, like women's shoes, for example, we have higher profit thresholds for that. So it really depends on the type of product, like weigh the risk and all that kind of stuff. Tips on focusing, maximizing profit. Make sure your repricers are dialed in, and then make sure you're taking advantage of like everything possible to build extra discount, right? So to cash back, discounted gift cards, coupons, all that kind of stuff. Because when you're doing arbitrage, you're competing on a lot of the same brands, right? You don't have the same levers that some people in, private label can pull and just kick everyone off the listing. So you got to be able to beat people on price. I've been selling 2 months. Ungain's already getting easier for you. Love to hear it. How many leads do your VAs find per day? Expect them to find? It's going to vary per like category and what they're sourcing, but it's also not a good way to think about it in terms of like how many leads are they finding, because they could find 10 leads. A different VA could find 1 lead and you can make 10 times more money on that 1 lead, right? And so for me, it's much more about profit generated. And so on the back end, we actually go in and track the profit that each virtual assistant is sourcing for us. So we run that report at the end of the month, have a custom spreadsheet, all that kind of stuff, relatively easy. But we're just going to run that report. And at the end of the month, it's like, hey, you generated, you didn't even replace your salary. So let's work together on that kind of stuff. So that's really what you need to monitor, is the profit on the back end. If you're at the point where you're hiring virtual assistants and ready to scale and build the team and all that kind of stuff, that's exactly the kind of stuff that I've been working with coaching students on. Thoughts on cash advance company like Payability? Is it viable to use them in the long term? A lot of them run like crazy, like loan shark type rates, right? So I do not recommend using them for the most part. If it's like last resort, then maybe, but those rates are crazy when you annualize them. How many units do you buy when you're testing out a new product? So that's something that you're able to skip a lot of when you have like experience and know-how. So we don't really test buy anymore. We're just buying straight out what we expect to sell for the next 30 days, unless we expect it to tank or anything like that. Like if we have hesitations, then we might buy smaller, but we're pretty much always just going straight into it. When you're newer though, you will want to test buy. So get into the rhythm of figuring out how many you think you'd sell that 30 days, and then maybe buy a week or two and see how it goes. And then eventually you're going to be like, all right, I'm correct. Let me start buying that full month of stock. And that's when it's going to be really a game changer, right? A lot of people can get to like 10, 20K with test orders, but to break out of that, it's a lot of just being able to rip straight into it. Any advice when you're stuck and cannot find profitable leads? That's a great question. So you're going to want to build like a very basic workflow for yourself, because right now you're probably just clicking around randomly, maybe doing some reverse sourcing, but just set aside time to look through, a list of websites that you've sourced before. What kind of coupons are they offering? Is it worth your time manual sourcing there? Maybe the coupons aren't great. Maybe there's no amazing sales. Then from there, jump in with some reverse sourcing and all that. And then use that reverse sourcing to learn like different brands that might be interesting, learn like the brands that people are really crushing on. And then next time you see those sales out there, you're going to be able to manually source through that brand because you saw it on somebody else's storefront. You know that it's going to be a good arbitrageable brand. First sales month, 1850. Not too bad. That's a good start. Any tips on moving to 5K in March? Probably just doing more of the same, right? Like if you're doing almost 2K in your first month, like you figured out the basics, right? And so then just maybe buy a little bit more would be the biggest thing. Like learn from the items you bought, be like, oh wow, when it says it's estimated to sell 500 times a month, it really does mean 500 times a month. So bump up those test orders a little bit. Besides that, just learn new sites to source from and all that good stuff. Since there's more red tape with the retail receipts, you recommend focusing on OA because there's a lot less risk. I'm going to focus on OA more just because it's more scalable. Like at the smaller scale, you would run into that. And especially when you're smaller, like one IP complaint can be a lot worse. That said, people crush doing retail arbitrage. So I wouldn't let that really limit you. Just be extra attentive to, when you're using SellerAmp in store, like make sure that the offers count is looking good and all that good stuff. There's no cliffs on the seller count and stuff like that to look out for, right? Strategies to get around orders getting canceled. Yeah. So if you're getting orders canceled, then just like test a variable, switch up payment methods, right? Next time, like, switch your address around a little bit. Just test individual different variables and eventually you're going to find a combo that works. And if they just don't want your money and you try a bunch of different things and they're just not taking it, go somewhere else that wants your money and try them again in a week. Sometimes it'll be right back to normal able to spend. We're going to be dropping mass UPC codes, see what items are profitable. It doesn't work as well as you think it would because anytime you can just mass upload UPC codes and plug it into a software, then anyone could do that. And so you'd have to be running UPCs that other people aren't and that kind of stuff. So like tactical arbitrage, still decently effective, used to be way better because you could just do that. You could just straight up throw UPCs in and run a scan on a website in like 2018 and it would just spit out profit. You got to be a little bit more creative with the scanning tools these days to spit out profit like that. Share your thoughts on no buy box. No buy box listings can be good because sometimes it'll like scare people away too. So if you can jump in and understand how fast that's selling, then that's like better than having a buy box sometimes. Obviously your crazy fast movers are usually going to have a buy box, but you can still find some good stuff there. Is it possible to, in Europe, can you make a video about it? Yeah, if you're in Europe, I don't know anything about selling on European markets, but you can sell on Amazon US if you like work with a prep center and stuff. That's what I would do. Although I've heard some of the European markets are pretty lucrative as well. So if you want to learn the European markets, I'm sure there's some other guys out there who are teaching you how to do it. The principles that we talk about apply, but there's going to be small things that are different, right? When you get comfortable with not doing test orders, good question. Yeah, so as you're growing, you're going to start buying stuff and it's like, man, I wish I'd bought more of that. And eventually it's going to get to the point where you're doing great sourcing and the biggest thing that's holding you back is you're not buying the 100 units you should have and you're doubting yourself a little bit. And so then when you get to that point, it's like, all right, I'm consistently winning. Let me just, multiply these orders by 2, 3 and see what happens. I mean, usually it'll go well. But you obviously don't want to just jump in right away and take big risks before you really know what you're doing. Obviously up to your own personal risk tolerance and stuff though. Best stores to reverse source from. Reverse sourcing is usually done like from an Amazon storefront. That would be like manual sourcing if you're going to Walmart and Target. And those would also be horrible sites to manual source. I would never manual source Walmart and Target because there's so many items on there. Unless you're looking at a very specific brand or something like that, that Walmart might be your supplier. I would not manual source those sites. First VA lacking. Yeah. Take that common mistake they're making, train that mistake. And a lot of times if they're not improving that mistake after you talk to them a couple times, like if they're not going to be coachable, then it's probably not going to make sense. But sometimes you'll get VAs that are not very great at the start and they're very willing to learn. Like some of my best team members were not that great at the start, but they were willing to learn and they became really good. So really just down to feeling on that, but continue to like coach out that mistake they're making, right? People getting started. What is a realistic goal in dollar of sales in the first 3 months? Really depends on how much time you can dedicate, how much you're willing to like absorb information. That's going to be a huge one. But like I've seen people hit 20, 30K on month 3. Like in that month, they sold 20 or 30 grand. But those are like the standout cases, right? I would say most people probably sell like 5 or 10 grand in their first 3 months. If you have experiences where prep center mislabel your items, send a size 9 with size 8 or incorrectly packed. Yeah, like you would do this. You're going to make occasional mistakes too, right? If they keep making the mistakes, it's probably time for a new prep center, but you've made occasional mistakes prepping your inventory too, probably. So, get some feedback. If they keep making the mistake, like clarify, like, hey, can you cover like removal order fees or something like that? Like if it really becomes a problem, but you're going to make some simple mistakes too, right? So I really appreciate you guys watching this video, picking up some awesome gems about selling on Amazon. If you guys want to make sure you don't miss the next live stream, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, all that good stuff so you know when I'm going to go live. Check that out there. If you guys do have any further questions or comments, feel free to drop those down below in the comment section. Always happy to answer those. But I really appreciate you guys watching this video and I will see you next time.